They say every forest has a sound, some rustle, some hum, some breathe. But this forest, this one screams. And when it screams, it doesn't scream in anger. It doesn't scream in pain. It screams your name. I didn't believe the stories at first. No one ever does. Because believing them means accepting one terrible truth. You don't hear your name unless your death is close. I grew up in a small town called Gray Hollow, pressed tightly against the edge of an ancient forest, no map ever named properly. On old documents, it was just marked as restricted woodland, but everyone in town had a name for it, the Calling Forest. As children, we were warned never to step past the last wooden sign on the dirt road. The sign was old, cracked, and barely standing. Its words had faded, but we all knew what it once said. Do not enter after sunset. Do not answer if it calls you. Adults never explained what it was. They never needed to, because every few years, someone would hear it, and soon after, someone would die. The first time I heard the forest scream a name, I was 12. It was late autumn, the kind where the air smells like wet leaves and rot. I was lying in bed when a sound drifted through my open window. A scream, long, sharp, agonized. It cut through the night like a blade. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, convinced someone was being murdered. Then I realized something far worse. The scream wasn't random. It was repeating the same word, over and over. Martha! 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 The next morning, the town gathered in silence outside Martha Bell's house. She was found dead in her bed. No wounds, no signs of struggle, just a look of absolute terror frozen on her face. The doctor called it heart failure. The forest called it something else. As I grew older, I learned the rules. Rule 1, the forest never screams during the day. Rule 2, it never screams more than one name at a time. Rule 3, if you hear your own name, you have 3 nights. No one knows why 3. No one has ever survived past the 3rd. People tried to leave town after hearing the scream. They tried to run. The forest didn't care. One man drove all night, trying to outrun fate. His name echoed through the trees as his car sped down the highway. They found his vehicle wrapped around a tree miles away. The radio was still on, playing static. And beneath the static, a faint whisper, his name. Others tried to ignore it. They covered their ears, locked their doors, took sleeping pills, drank themselves unconscious. The forest screamed louder. It always made sure you heard. I became obsessed. I needed to understand why the forest did this, why it chose some people and not others, why it waited years between screams. So I studied the town's history, old journals, church records, police reports, deaths going back over 200 years, and slowly, a pattern emerged. Every name the forest screamed belonged to someone carrying a secret. Not small secrets, heavy ones, murder, betrayal, lies that destroyed lives. The forest didn't kill the innocent. It summoned the guilty. But guilt isn't always obvious. Sometimes it hides. Sometimes it sleeps, until the forest wakes it. The scream from my father came on a winter night. The wind was violent, rattling the windows like something trying to get in. I was awake when I heard it. Low at first, then louder, closer. Daniel! I froze. My father sat up in his chair, eyes wide, color draining from his face. He didn't ask if I heard it. He didn't need to. That night, he finally told me the truth. 20 years earlier, a boy had gone missing in the forest. The town searched for weeks. They never found the body. What they didn't know was that my father had been there, drunk, angry, careless. He said it was an accident. He said the boy ran into the woods and never came back. But as he spoke, the forest screamed his name again, louder, angrier. My father died on the 3rd night, just like the others. I stood at his funeral staring at the tree line, realizing something terrible. The forest was not evil. It was hungry, hungry for balance, hungry for truth, hungry for payment. Years passed, no screams. The town relaxed. People forgot. I stayed because someone had to remember. Then one night, the forest screamed again, and this time, it screamed my name. At first I laughed. I hadn't killed anyone. I hadn't ruined lives. But laughter faded quickly when the scream returned. Sharper, closer, more personal. Eli, the forest knew something I didn't. I searched my past, every memory, every regret. And then I remembered. A lie I told years ago. A small one. Or so I thought. I had accused someone else to save myself. They lost everything. Their reputation, their family, their will to live. They took their own life months later, and I moved on. The forest didn't. On the second night, the scream followed me into my dreams. I saw the trees bending toward me, bark splitting open like mouths. I woke up screaming my own name. By the third night, I understood the final rule. You cannot escape the forest, but you can answer it. At midnight, I walked past the old sign. The forest was silent, waiting. I stepped between the trees and whispered, "I'm here." The scream stopped. For the first time in history, the forest listened. They say the forest hasn't screamed since. But sometimes when the wind is right, people hear something else. A voice, not screaming, not whispering, just calling. And if you listen closely, you might hear my name, because the forest doesn't just take lives. Sometimes it keeps them.